Hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're keeping fit. I hope you're well. I hope everything is going well. If it's not, I still believe that as long as you're watching and you have a life, there is still a way, there is hope, and things will get better. My name is Lady Vera, and I welcome you to the Aviation Business Series. Here, we are here to expand knowledge, to explore opportunities, and celebrate milestones in the aviation industry, in the business world, and in your life and career. Today, I am joined in by a very good gentleman. The first time I called him, I told him this gentleman has been in the industry for long. He's an old man in the industry. And then he started laughing. But for me, it shows that he has been consistent. And when you see people who have been consistent, meaning that they are doing something that you and I have to learn. And so we are glad, very, very, very glad to have this man. He has been here for close to 15, 25 years, yes. And his name is Mr. Sean Mendis. He's actually the past CEO of Africa World Airlines. He just left. Just a few months ago, he left because his contract had ended. We want to know what's happened with him. We want to know how he got into Africa World. And now after Africa World, what's going to happen? So help me welcome Sean Mendis. Hello.
Thank you very much.
How are you, Shane?
I'm excellent. Thank you.
Great to have you. Now, when you were active, I didn't get the chance to speak to you. Now that you're relaxing, I have the chance to speak to you. For me, all things are good. Now you can tell your story from a more personal perspective. So it's all good for me. How long have you been working, Shane, in active aviation?
We're probably looking at around 20 years. Now you brought in the intro that I was an old man and I laughed at the time, but now you're making me feel old again. So yeah, probably close to 20 years, give or take.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Did you actually know you're going to start in aviation? How did life start for you before entering into aviation?
I don't think I ever had a choice. Both my parents worked for airlines. They met when they were working for airlines. I was born into the airline industry. So I think it's always been a question of which part of the airline industry would I be active in rather than which industry would I be active in.
Wow, that's interesting to know, because there are so many of us who see the fancy industry aviation want to join, but you were put in like your mother, your father. Wow. But did they actually encourage you, or you just felt like because your mom and dad, so you want to?
I think it was something that, growing up, it was something I always had an interest in. It was something that obviously I became very familiar with. It was something that, as it developed, when I was a child, I wanted to be a pilot. And I saw how the pilot life actually is. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to be a pilot. Then I went and I studied aerospace engineering in college. And once again, it was like, I don't think I could actually envision spending my life, designing planes and fixing things. I've got an aptitude for that, but not an interest in that. And then later on, as I started getting involved more in the management side of things, I was like, okay, I think this is where my true aptitude lies. And so I then went on and did an aviation management course. And from there, that became pretty clear to me then that this is where my skills lie and where I can probably make the best career. So that was the evolution of which aspect of the aviation industry is best suited for me.
It's good you are talking about how you started, because for us today we want to talk about being prepared for opportunities. And so many of us see pilots and crew, and we think that's the beginning and end of aviation, but it looks like there is more to the story. So I'm glad you are mentioning that. So let's say after high school you went into the university straight to do aerospace engineering, or how did it work out for you?
Yeah. After school, I went to the US to study aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech. And, it was fairly difficult course, and I genuinely felt that while I was making progress in the course, I wasn't getting the satisfaction out of it that this was something that I wanted to do for my career. And I was fortunate enough that at the time, in some of the breaks, I had an opportunity to get involved as an intern with some other projects, doing business plan evaluation and so forth for potential startup airlines. And at that time, it was okay. I've got much more interest in this. I've got much more inclination towards this, and obviously from the type of results that I was producing for them, people liked what I was doing, and that was the opportunity then that, okay, this is where I need to focus. So I switched over to an aviation management course, moved to Canada to do the aviation management course, and the rest is history. And I was fortunate enough again that it was, I think one of the main themes that I'm going to really push over here in this discussion is going to be, when an opportunity comes up, you've got to be able to take that opportunity at the right time and make the most of it. It was the contacts that I made back then, in those contacts, which introduced me to Ralph Atkin, who was back then the founder of SkyWest Airlines in the US. But later on in 2004, 2005, he was part of the team that the government of Ghana had called in for the restructuring initially of Ghana Airways, and then for the setup of Ghana International Airlines. So he was the first CEO. So it was through those contacts that I became involved while I was doing the aviation management course in Canada, with doing the studies in the background for the Ghana Airways restructuring and then Ghana International Airlines. And when I finished that course in 2004, it was right, we need somebody to get on the ground in Ghana to, do the initial stage. Would I be interested? The opportunity was there. I literally packed one handbag and came to Ghana. I think it was 4th of January 2005. We set up Ghana International Airlines, and I was 6 years at GIA, and beyond that, lots of ties with Ghana and African aviation from that point onwards.
Really, really exciting about that journey, because you started off, you went into something, you were not too sure of it, you saw another opportunity, you decided, okay, this is something I'm more inclined to, I want to try it, and then an opportunity to actually do it on a bigger platform came, and that is great. I don't want to think that for some of the people in the other part of Africa and in the world, they don't get opportunities, and that is why they are not able to build capacity. Do you think that is the case? We don't get enough opportunities, so we are not able to build up capacity?
I'm going to actually take a contradictory position to that. I think that everyone gets opportunities. People don't always recognize the opportunities. I think people, it's something which has constantly grated at me. I won't say necessarily in Africa. I think in a lot of former colonial or developing countries, it tends to be the case. And not just in Africa, it's the same thing in India and various places. That sometimes when someone comes to you and says, what do you think about this? You're not actually willing to speak your mind. You're not actually willing to share your views. You're not actually willing to let your expertise show. You're more like, oh, whatever you say, sir, that's good, sir. And you don't actually take the opportunity when someone asks you the question to actually give an answer that reflects your views. And as a result, that is an opportunity squandered. An opportunity doesn't necessarily mean someone say, I'm going to hire you like this. It is an opportunity to speak to somebody who could be influential. And I'll say that honestly, there are people in Ghana, there are people elsewhere in the world as well, which I've worked in, where sometimes with just a simple discussion where you ask somebody, what do you think of this idea? And they're like, well, honestly, I don't necessarily agree with that. We could do it better by doing it this way. And those are the things which get somebody to be noticed. And that is an opportunity. When somebody asks you, what do you think? That is an opportunity to make yourself seen, to make yourself known. So people get asked these all the time. They don't necessarily recognize it as an opportunity, and as a result, they don't grasp the opportunities.
I like the point that you mentioned, that opportunities are always around us, and it comes in different ways. Sometimes it's not direct, so we think it's not an opportunity, but an opportunity to serve, assist somebody could actually be your breakthrough. So Shane, thank you for that. Today we are talking about preparedness to meet opportunities, and we are learning a lot from you. So what happened after Ghana International? What happened?
What happened to Ghana International, or what happened after Ghana International? Because we only got 1 hour to. We only got. Exactly. We only have 1 hour to do this. If you want to know what happened to Ghana International, we'll have to do it in like a 13-part series.
What happened
well,
after?
That's again, it was very much a case of opportunity in the right place at the right time. I think there were a lot of us in Ghana International who saw the opportunity. At the time, Ghana was obviously ripe for a well-run airline. I think Ghana Airways had definitely seen the opportunity, but was unable to capitalize on it for the long term. Ghana International, for various reasons, was unable to do that either. So I think there were a lot of us there in management, workers, and board members as well, who felt that while Ghana International may not have a long-term future, there was a future there. So Apiji Afenu, who was one of the board members at Ghana International, who also worked for Togbe at SAS Ghana at the time, basically, when GIO shut down, contacted me and said, let's have a discussion about what potential opportunities. At the same time, Togbe Afede 14th, who is now the chairman of Africa World Airlines, had just gone to China with President Mills at the time on I think there was a state visit to China, and he was part of the trade delegation. And during that visit, he'd met with some Chinese partners who'd expressed an interest of investing in Africa and potentially developing transportation sector and infrastructure projects in Africa. So when I met with Apiji, the question was, could there be a potential to develop an airline with Chinese investment and potentially infrastructure and assistance from the Chinese on that front? So that was in September 21st, 2010, where we met at Alisa Hotel in Northridge. And we had lunch over there, and I remember writing notes on the back of a paper napkin, like, China, ? What things like that. And so, that was where we looked at it. And, to bring back to the opportunity theme, after doing a bit of feasibility on it, we felt that there was an opportunity. So at that point, Togbe then arranged for a trip to China. We had written a brief business plan outline in terms of this is where the opportunity is, these are the markets, this is the kind of investment. Wasn't anything very detailed. So Togbe, myself, Apiji, and one other person, we'd gone off to China. And we met with HNA Group, we met with China Africa Development Fund, potential investors and so forth. And at that time, effectively, the opportunity was felt to be reasonable, and we decided to proceed with the project jointly between that, but it was obviously being driven from Ghana at the time. That was in October of 2010. We then incorporated the company in November 2010. We filed with GCA for our license in December of 2010. We went through the full air carrier licensing procedure. We got our air carrier license in March of 2011. And that's when things then began, obviously, to move forward. We had to then start constituting our technical teams for the AOC acquisition and do more fundraising. I mean, initially at that first stage, we were running out of a conference table in Togbe's conference room. And, at that point, we then had to get offices, hire more staff, and begin to take the whole thing forward. So we started literally from an idea sketched on the back of a napkin, and, with the right opportunity, with the right partners, with the right vision for it. We had a very clear vision of what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a domestic and regional airline based and hubbed in Accra. And we saw the opportunity there. And fortunately enough, it was thanks to the opportunity that Togbe had to go with President Mills, the opportunity that the Chinese had to get involved with Togbe, the opportunity that I had to get to know Apiji had to work with Togbe. It all just came together at the time. And, we were able to capitalize well on it and get Africa World Airlines at least started and on the way.
I'm glad that you mentioned the partnership and the people involved, because that brings me to my other question. Sometimes we have a plan, but when you have the right people, I think that it makes a difference. What's your take on that?
Oh, absolutely. And, I had a conversation with someone the other day about why so many African airlines don't actually get off the ground. And the main reason for this, I said, was those who have a good plan don't have the funding, and those who have the funding don't have a good plan. And it is sometimes the need where the big man or the person who has the access to funding must be willing to listen to the experts. You may be an expert in the field of power generation or cement production or whatever. That doesn't necessarily make you an expert on airlines just simply because you fly a lot. You think, oh, there must be a market to London, there must be a market to Dubai because Emirates and British Airways are flying. That isn't always the case. There may be, there may not be. And just simply watching what somebody else does and not understanding a market, even though you have the funding, is why so many airlines fail and why so many good ideas often aren't able to get funding because they aim to target unserved parts of the economy. You don't necessarily obviously say, I'll give you a clear example: Accra to London. Oh, people are always flying Accra to London. Certainly, a lot of people are flying Accra to London, but a lot of airlines are already serving that market. British Airways is serving it. KLM, you can connect in Amsterdam. Brussels Airlines, TAP Portugal, Turkish, all of these there. However, say Accra to Wa, it's a much smaller market, but nobody's serving it. If you go into that market, you have the opportunity of dominating that market. And if you start looking at the other markets, the low-hanging fruit out there, which aren't necessarily as glamorous, aren't necessarily something that everybody else is serving, you have a chance to really develop on it. And in 2010, when we were setting up there, that was the void we saw in the Ghana market, was that certainly, 2010 was the beginning of the real explosion as all the European airlines were coming in, Middle Eastern airlines were coming in, everybody was increasing frequencies, everybody was flying daily. In fact, Virgin Atlantic was just coming in, British Airways was going to twice daily. So there was a lot of stuff happening. But at the same time, there was 3 weekly flights to Tamale. There was Kumasi, sometimes Amtrak flew, sometimes they didn't. CTK was on and off. There really wasn't a solid domestic structure. And at the same time, there were thousands and thousands of people traveling every day by bus. And there was an opportunity for that. As, maybe to get a bit more technical on this, if you look at historically, any developing economy, when your per capita GDP is below 1,000 per capita, your air transport grows more or less at the same rate as GDP growth. And that sort of makes sense because the only people who can really afford to travel at that time are the governments, the multinationals, things like that for it. But when you start getting into the lower middle economy, that is in the 1,000 to 5,000 GDP range. And that was where Ghana was just about in that range at that time and is still in that range. Your air traffic begins to grow at double the rate of GDP. And again, if you think about it, the first thing that people do when they have disposable income is they buy consumer goods, air conditioners, big screen TVs, and things like that. The second thing they do is they begin to travel. And this is because there is urbanization that takes place as people, as there's more development of the economy, people move to cities. So say somebody who's from Tamale may come to Accra to get a job, but at some point he's got to go back for weddings, funerals, other things like that, and they need to travel. So the travel then becomes one of the second most the second thing that people tend to spend their disposable income on. And Ghana was right at that stage there where there was going to be this explosion of demand, but there wasn't the incumbent players, and the infrastructure was more or less there. There were airports in the regions, but the incumbent players were not quite serving it well enough. And that was the opportunity we really saw. And obviously others did as well, because at the same time we were doing that, Starbo was coming up, 540 was coming in. So a lot of people also saw that opportunity. At that point, it was a case of, who's in it with the ability to execute the business plan best. And, 10 years down the line, I think that answer is pretty clear.
I think it's pretty clear. We know. Now we can see. But I think it's a good work done. And I like the way you are able to actually pinpoint the areas that has brought about the success. Because it's not an issue of just it happened. It's not a magic show. There's a lot of preparation, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of data analysis, there's a lot of sitting down to understand the metrics and taking initiatives that you believe would make a difference. And so I commend you for that, and the whole team that assisted you. Again, I want to know from your personal point of view, when Africa World had established and the other airlines were about to close down, how did you see that? Did you think that pretty soon the issues that affected them to close down would affect you as well? Or you saw it as, okay, a learning curve? How did you see that?
It takes me back to one of our initial presentations we made to investors. And one of the slides over there was that everyone in our startup team has been part of airlines that failed. and that should be seen as a positive. Not because we failed before, because everyone will fail at some stage. It is because we've learned from that. And what you see now in the business plan is the lessons of failure fixed rather than someone coming in saying I've never failed before. You then don't know what the pitfalls are and how you're going to avoid them. So yes, absolutely. The key things which we identified were what caused airlines to fail is in inability to properly fund your operation. And that's through cash flow and sometimes by taking on excessive debt. So one of the key things we wanted at AWA when we set up, and something which is actually, one of the precepts of AWA, which is a big reason why AWA has come through the pandemic so strongly, is that AWA never wanted to fund itself through external debt. AWA did not go to banks and take out $10 million in loans where you're stuck now having to pay interest and having to pay the loan back, even if business is not good. Rather than that, AWA looked for investors like HNA Group, like China Africa Development Fund, like SNIT, who are not in it for short-term returns. They're in it in terms of, let us put the money in there and let's look at it, not what return I'm going to get. Am I going to get a dividend in the second year? Is like, profit or that? But in 10 years' time, is this concern still going to be going and is it still going to be generating returns on investment? And again, we were fortunate enough that in SAS Ghana, which was Fogbase, in SNIT, in China Africa Development Fund, and in HNA Group, we had 4 very strong shareholders who were looking at this for the long term. They were not looking at it in terms of how quickly can I get my money out. It was, what is the long-term prospect for this? And I think too many airlines, especially in Africa, where the cost of capital is so high, often make that mistake. You go out and you take a loan, and there's no way you can service a loan at 15, 20, 30% interest rates when you're in a startup phase. You may get lucky and get away with it for the first year or so, but having access to proper funding in the long term on an equity basis rather than a debt basis was a very big difference in terms of what AWA focused on rather than what other airlines focused on at that stage.
It's very good you mentioning that. I'm seeing a whole wealth of knowledge that you have acquired since 2014 when you started, and I'm very, very glad that you are sharing this knowledge with us. Now, for me, is it a good thing to be specialized in such a career terrain, or it's better to be generalized? What do you think? Because it has an effect. So, what do you think?
I think, to be honest, it depends how good you are. If you're very good at doing something, be very specialized in it, and there will always be demand for your services. If you have an interest in a lot of areas without quite having a expert level expertise in those, you're probably better off in having a working knowledge of a number of different areas. And that's effectively what I do. I've got a background in commercial. I've got an background in operations. I studied aerospace engineering, so I have the ability, without necessarily being a pilot instructor, being able to fly a plane or do anything as such. I know enough about flight operations that a pilot can't pull the wool over my eyes, and that an engineer who says I need to change this part can't necessarily do that without a proper justification. But I'm not an expert enough to be able to do that. So, but on the flip side, you also need the engineer who's studied and become an expert in this system. I'm the expert in fixing the AE 3007 engine. And you've got to have that. You've got to have the pilot instructor on the Embraer, on the Boeing 787, because that expertise is needed as well. So each person has their own areas, but whatever you choose to do, just make sure you do your best at it. And, don't keep chasing a skill set which you are simply not going to be able to do. I mean, you can have a great love of art, but if you draw a cat and it looks a bit like a rat, you're probably not going to be very successful in a career.
I didn't see that example coming. Oh God. All right. So I think so far so good. I'm enjoying the conversation. As our people are watching us, we are talking about preparedness to meet opportunities. We've done more of the technical side, and we want to go into your life. How is life for you? Are you married? Do you have children? Or is work, 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 work? Did I lose you? Okay, so we'll just go for a break, and when we come back, I'm sure we're going to have Shane back with us. Just a second, please.
Tomorrow sounds good. With its new words, hot tips, and best kept secrets, like local beats, touring bands, and classic tunes. It's the cheer of birdsong, crashing waves, and sleepless cities.
Tomorrow looks good. With familiar faces, colorful characters, and deep blue seas. Like nothing you imagined, everything you dreamed, bright as a canopy of stars.
It's your first flight, first night in town, and setting off at first light.
Tomorrow feels good with best laid plans, the best in town, and the best you've ever had.
Like sealed deals, bucket lists, and being there when it counts.
It's a home away from home.
The thrill of the unknown.
In it together
or alone. Tomorrow isn't a world away.
Staying home for now.
Dream forever.
Hello to me, hello to you. Welcome back. I have him back, and I'm sure you're enjoying the conversation. I'm learning so much, and I hope you're also learning as you take the journey in your career. I'm sure you are really grasping what people are doing, others are doing, that is making them different and unique and very relevant in their industries. I have Shen back. Welcome, Shen.
Thanks.
Welcome back. Technology and its issues.
Thank you. I tell you, the African internet is the same all over Africa. It's good at times, but then suddenly it'll drop off and then come right back.
Now we have a name for it, Africa Internet.
Well, as you know, I always say that African internet is the thing that will keep airlines in business, because people can never completely rely on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all these other things. If you really want to be guaranteed that your meeting is going to go smoothly, the only way you can do it is fly there and meet the person.
Meaning that you're going to get more business. Shin.
Absolutely.
Wish us better luck. We have to do better in terms of internet and connectivity. But as I was mentioning that when it comes to you as a personal person, has it been work, or you have another side of you? Do you have a life outside operations and aviation? Do you have something like that?
Honestly, no. It's when I'm involved with work, it's something that has got 100% commitment from me. It's I always believe that you can never really even take a break or walk away from it, because if the work doesn't go away, it just simply waits for you to come back. So I've always maintained, certainly I will prioritize it lower when I'm away from the office, or some things don't have to be dealt with now, but there's some things which do have to be dealt with now. So I'm a firm believer that if I'm involved with something, I've got to be 100% involved with it. And again, working in different places around the world, I don't think I've ever worked. In fact, I don't think I ever have worked in the same place as my family has been ever over 20 years. I've always worked in a different country or different city or whatever from where initially my parents or my wife or whatever has been. So it's just the case of working remotely or working from home for a project that's remote or whatever else has been pretty much the way it goes. So work is when you enjoy work, it's not really work. It's just an extension of your life, and you're doing it. I may not be working with Africa World Airlines right now, but it doesn't mean I'm not keeping up with it. It's not that I'm not, I'd say, at least daily talking to somebody about something and so forth. And it was the case for the 6 years that I was away from AWA as well. I was constantly in touch with people, and that again provided me the opportunity of when they needed to move to the next stage and refocus the airline in 2018. That's why I was in a position to come back and so forth. So yeah. I have no life other than work, in other words.
But don't you, it's a choice, I believe. However, do you think it's a choice that leaves you with a lot of regrets, or you think you can make up, or there's nothing to make up?
I have never have regrets. If you're doing something for the right reason, it may not have the same outcome you want, but never have regrets with it. If you've done something because you felt at the time that it was the best way, it was the best decision, you did it for the right reasons. You can't predict what the future is going to hold, but look at what you're doing, understand why you're doing it. And if you're doing it for a good reason, certainly you can learn your lesson, and the next time you're faced with the same decision, you don't have to take the same decision based upon your past experience, but never regret the decision you took for the right reasons. A wrong decision for the right reasons is actually the right decision.
I like that. I think we can use that for a quote. But in between, when you left Africa World Airlines, what happened? What did you do?
I left AWA in 2012. My initial contract was to start up the airline. So, when we got our AOC in 2012, a month later, I took my bonus and left. I moved to Somalia in 2013. I was working for a company there that we had the contract to manage Mogadishu airport. So I was the person who drew the short straw of living and working in Mogadishu, which was probably one of my favorite jobs of all time. It was literally, we lived on the airport in converted shipping containers. At 5 o'clock in the morning, we went out, checked the perimeter, and opened the gate so all the staff could come in. And then again at 6 in the evening, everyone went out. We locked the gate and went back home to our shipping containers and slept. And during the day, we ran an international airport. So it was really down to absolute basics. But it was taking what was effectively a piece of concrete with holes in it after the Civil War and taking it into what is today a major international airport. I mean, you got Turkish Airlines, Qatar Airlines, Fly Dubai. All these guys have been flying to Mogadishu. And when I think back to what it was when we took it over and when I was there, it's we've really developed it in that time frame. So it was a very satisfying job and a great fun job. When I tell some of the stories, it can be very good stories, but we will, again, that would be another 13-hour discussion if we wanted to get into that. So I was in Mogadishu. Yeah, so I was in Mogadishu 2013-14. In 2014, SKA, the company that I was with, was setting up a new jet fuel terminal in the UAE in Ras Al Khaimah. So I moved to the UAE to finish off the commissioning of that and to get the business up and running in the UAE. Then we also, in Ras Al Khaimah, had a cargo warehouse operation, which we took over. So again, I had to do all that with UAE Civil Aviation Authority and so forth. So we got all that done. At the same time, the group had an aviation operation based out of South Africa, which was focused on conflict zone logistics. So we did contracts for UN and basically in parts of the world that other people don't like to operate. So at the time it was Iraq, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Somalia, later on became Yemen, Syria, Libya. Basically wherever there's the conflict and so forth, we're able to put the logistics in place. So one of our decisions at the time was in 2014 was that we wanted to move that out of South Africa into Uganda. So I was then involved with Uganda to set up what then became my third airline. After Ghana International and AWA, we set up another cargo AOC and cargo airline in Uganda, which we then got our AOC in Uganda in 2016. And so that was what I was involved with on that front. And at the same time, running the UAE businesses. Then when we sold the UAE businesses, I moved back to Malawi. And I was still running the Uganda remotely from Malawi and so forth. So the interesting in different corners of the world that a lot of Africa and Middle East focus and in parts of the world doing things that people didn't realize were actually being done.
Yeah. Because we see aviation and all we know is the airline flying. So it's more of the commercial part that is mostly seen and is hailed. It makes it look like that's the iceberg of the whole interaction. Every time you meet somebody working in aviation, everybody talks about passenger, a little bit about cargo, but it's mostly about airports, people flying. So this technical part is really interesting. I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities for younger people to begin to look in that space. But the question is, what courses are they supposed to do to get into the other technical space when it comes to aviation?
And there's a wide range of things, and again, I think at the entry level, it's the base. The fundamentals are the same across everything. The say, for example, you got an opportunity to work with, say, Aviation or Mendis or Swissport in Ghana. What you learn over there will actually hold you good, whether you went to work for an airline or whether a passenger or cargo airline. At the entry level, the experience and the understanding of how things work, ramp safety, general security and safety trends, safety management systems, will generally hold well. As you get into that, you'll have opportunities to get more specialized. And that is where, again, you got to look at where the opportunities come up, look at whether that's something that is best suited to you and something that you want to pursue, and then follow it from there. And as you follow each individual path, you'll have options. I find that a lot of youngsters sometimes go in to do unaccredited courses, and a lot of these are rubbish. Airline cabin crew training, airline ticketing. And honestly, when I've interviewed people who have done these courses, I often find they perform worse on the interviews than those who've just come in without any knowledge, because they have the unfortunate feeling that maybe they know something when in reality they've been taught the wrong thing. So I would definitely caution people against doing courses from the wrong place. Every man and his dog is offering a course in something or the other, and make sure that you know that the person who's teaching it and what is being taught is legitimate, rather than just chasing the cheapest person, or this man is in my church, he must know what he's doing, or something like that. Because honestly, some of the candidates I've interviewed who've come out of these courses have I mean, I could tell stories that would have people just sitting like, they said, what?
Wow. Should I say that I am embarrassed about that?
No, you shouldn't be, because there are also some very good ones, and that's why I said it's about doing the right due diligence. There are. I mean, obviously, everyone is trained somewhere, and a lot of people with good experience have put it out. And I'm not going to name names in Ghana as to who's good and who's bad. I could do that privately if somebody wants to know.
Call you.
But there are certainly some very good ones, but it's not necessarily a case, that if you want to get ahead in this, that is not something you need to do. I've seen plenty of people given advice that, you want to be airline cabin crew, you must do at least 2 of these courses. Rubbish. If you are hired by an airline, the airline will put you through their own specific training. And quite honestly, you're better off. You are not being hired because of your expertise, certainly not at entry level. Nobody hires somebody for an entry level position because of their past experience. You hire them because of their potential. So you're better off, if you want to say the cabin crew, you're better off with an attention to detail to show your ability to get through it. I'll give you an example. Something which we changed at AWA was we made it mandatory that somebody must have either a university degree or equivalent work experience. And people asked, why did you do that? Why this is the problem. Everyone wants people in Ghana to have degrees and so forth. That wasn't the case. The problem we were actually having before that with people we hired as cabin crew was that they were very good looking, they were very personable, but they didn't actually know what the commitment to a training program and to actually working in a safety and, in that kind of a field was like. And we found that having gone through a university course and passed a university course has taught you that you need sometimes, I don't feel like working today. You don't have a choice. You have an exam tomorrow. You need to study for it. And sometimes that's what you need, because so many of these people who seem very good candidates in paper and even at interviews did not have the track record, because they didn't have work experience, of showing they were able to even get through a training course. Or once they got through a training course, they'd be like, I'm so tired, I can't work 12-hour days and so forth. They didn't have a track record of being able to do that. So at the entry level, what you've done isn't as much of a case as being able to project that you have the ability and the potential to be trained on the technicalities to go forward. Be able to convince someone that if you're going for a job that has long shifts and early morning starts, be able to tell them. I'd be more concerned about, can you make it to a 4 a.m. start? Okay, where do you live? I live in Eburi. And you're going to try and make it to Kotoka Airport by 4 a.m. every day. What is your transport? I'll find transport. Now immediately you're beginning to raise doubts on me. You may be the most qualified, have done 10 courses and so forth, but if you can't make it to work on time every day, I'm probably better off getting somebody else. And that's the kind of thing which is probably more focused on. When you're looking at an entry level, be able to convey that you have the potential, that you have the ability to be trained. I'll take it back again to Ralph Atkin, who I mentioned earlier, and something that Ralph actually mentioned, and which I firmly believe in, is that you are better off hiring somebody for potential and with the right attitude than hiring them based on their past experiences. You're better off taking a man off the street and teaching him to fly a plane who wants to learn than to take a pilot who knows everything but doesn't want to actually work.
I'm learning so much from you. As a trainer myself, I'm beginning to understand why I'm being shifted more into doing the soft skill and to look at the attitude, the work ethics, which looks like sometimes we lack that a lot. So I'm glad that you are mentioning that. I'm very glad you are mentioning that.
And that's essential at entry level. I mean, obviously, if I'm hiring somebody for a managerial role, they need to know what they're going to be managing. There's no point by hiring a pilot who doesn't know how to fly a plane. So when I'm hiring for roles like that, yes. But when we're hiring for frontline things, the stepping stones, which genuinely everyone starts with, you're either starting with it in terms of doing advanced level courses, in university, studying aviation management or things as such, or you're starting with it by working your way up. And both of them are giving you the same equivalent experience. One is giving it to you in a classroom, one's giving it to you on the front lines. And both of them have their right places. And I think organizations which have the right mix of people who know how the front line works, as well as the theory and the education behind it, the organizations that will be the most successful.
True, very true. Thank you for pointing that to us, because as we speak about we being prepared for opportunities, I get to know that it's not only about the certificates, but it's more about the potential and the attitude. And you being a CEO for this long, and you have been hiring people, you definitely have answered some questions why people are not being hired. Right. Thank you so much, Shane. I think we have 2 more questions, and I'll let you go. Okay, I'll let you go. I know you're busy, so I'll let you go.
No, I got time. Go ahead. Yeah, sure.
So one of the questions that really comes to mind is, when you started off, were you in a company or you were independent? And if you were independent, would you say that being an independent person or technical person in aviation works better than being with an organization? How does it work?
I'll come back to it again, saying that everybody has a unique situation. And again, it depends on what skill you have and what you have to offer. When I started off, again, I was fortunate. My dad was just retiring from the airline. So he had set up his own company and was doing consulting and other projects and that. So I initially started off by assisting his company in that respect, and bringing some of my they had the technical knowledge but didn't necessarily have the business skills to do a PowerPoint presentation and write a proposal and things. So I was the one who was getting involved with it at that point of time. But at the same time, those skills also translated with getting affiliated with other groups. As I said, we looked, one of the first projects I worked on was the TWA bankruptcy in 2001. And I'd taken a semester off from college to work on that. And it wasn't necessarily a company, but it was a group who was bidding on the assets of it. And again, I was working with them on that. And it was the structure of it wasn't a structured organization as much, but working with the people there allowed me to draw on their experience, build up my networking, and so forth. So there's a balance between the two. I definitely say that not everybody is cut out to work independently. Sometimes people don't always understand. As a youngster, there were a lot of things back then which I didn't necessarily have the focus and everything to be able to do that on my own. And I learned from watching other people work in that way. But, by doing that, I learned the ways. And that's why today I'm probably able to function a lot better than most independently. In fact, that's what I prefer to do right now, is work independently and pick and choose where I can best contribute my expertise, rather than be in a situation where you are, I think maybe my prejudice will show over here, but saying a slave to the company's goals rather than somewhere that you believe you can best contribute anyway.
But that's that kind of feeling, that kind of mental picture and mental decision, does it come when you have gotten to a point in your career, and what is that point that you need to now shift and say, okay, I want to work for somebody or I want to work alone? What is
I
that cutoff
think
point? What?
there isn't really a point. It's going to depend on everybody's personality. Some people are more suited to taking instructions and executing them very well. Other people are better suited to looking at a big picture and developing concepts. Other people are better suited to bringing a team together and ensuring that the team is executing without necessarily doing the work themselves. So I think everybody's personality and everybody's skill set is going to be different. I'll say that genuinely, I think the personalities of people in Ghana particularly, and this isn't necessarily taking it the wrong way, people tend to be more timid, people tend to be more respectful of elders and so forth, and so they're not often in a position where they're willing to be the outsider, the independent, to question what somebody is doing wrong simply because they're more experienced and they're older. And if you're going to have that attitude, well, it's a good attitude to have, and it'll probably serve you well in a structured organization. You'll be viewed as respectful and things as such. But as an independent, that's not what your role is. As an independent, your role is to bring a different perspective, to bring an outside perspective. And if you can't do that, you're probably not suited for that. While other people are the opposite. Sometimes they're told to do something, they disagree with it, and they fight and they don't do it. They're probably not suited to being in an organization, because in an organization, whether you like it or not, you've got a role to play. You can voice it, and certainly any good manager will let anybody voice it. And I've let people always voice their concerns to me before smiling and saying, that's nice, but we're going to do it my way anyway. And that's because, you know what? When you are responsible for the end result, you've got to take responsibility for it. And letting everybody go and do whatever they want isn't going to work. You need their input and you need their expertise. But as a manager, you've got to be able to take the input, say, I agree with that, I disagree with that, we're going to do something in the middle, but more towards that side.
Interesting. I think I understand why now a lot of trainers, we are talking about the disruptive attitude, because it looks like this is the century that we kind of need it. So it's a clear
if you
balance.
want to be successful, if you want to make an unsuccessful organization successful, you've got to do something different. Trying to do the definition of lunacy is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So if you're looking to make change, if you're looking to emulate a business model that has failed in the past, there's no reason it's going to be successful unless you do something different. And sometimes that difference is the people doing it. Sometimes the difference is the approach doing it. Sometimes the difference is the actual fundamental concepts being changed. But doing the same thing over and over and expecting it to be successful is what most national airlines do in Africa, unfortunately. They start losing money. They say, we're going to restructure it. Let's put another $10 million into it. And you're doing exactly the same thing for the second, third, fourth time. And what is really different, and how is it going to change? Question to be thrown. No country in particular to be mentioned.
Okay, we hear. But definitely, I'm sure we've learned so much. I speak for Ghana. So for Ghana, I believe that every technical person on the board that is going to bring out the new national airline hopefully knows that we are not doing the same thing all over again.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. We are not going to do the same thing over again. Now, if something happens and we realize that we are doing the same thing over again, we're going to talk about it and change it, because something has to change. We need a more thriving industry. Thank you so much, Shane. It's we've learned so much. I must say we've learned a lot. Thank you for the time. Thank you for pouring out your heart to us. And what's up for you now? What's going to happen? What's up?
For now, my goal is to relax. I think the last few months with COVID in particular has been very stressful. And, I had a 2-year commitment when I came back to AWA in 2018. We already extended that by a few months because of COVID. So I think AWA was in a position by the time the borders opened in September where we were ready to pick up. And if you look at Ghana, the traffic in Ghana has actually picked up to 80 to 85% of last year's traffic already. I think that by January, you'll actually see year-on-year growth. And when the borders reopened, AWA was in a position where certainly there was work to be done in terms of putting the right protocols and everything for the reopening. But by October, I was confident enough that I could walk away, come back home, and rest for a bit. I hadn't been home since last December. So, after being away for that long, it was a case of I need to get back home, spend some more time at home. My dogs were not recognizing me. My wife sort of recognized me. So I was like, all right, I need to be back here for a bit. No specific plans for now. Maybe next year, let's see how things start going. But for now, I'm very happy sitting at home, not having to worry about an alarm clock, not having to worry about somebody calling and saying this plane has a technical problem in Kumasi or Lagos or wherever else. It's a pleasant life. Just sit and catch up with Netflix.
But yes, recently I was reading about the people, some of the richest people who are in the world, and some of the things they do to keep themselves more active and bringing out good ideas. And one of them is to make space for relaxation so that they
Absolutely.
can catch up with nature. So yes, please take some time and rest. And I think
Absolutely.
normally whilst you are resting, there could be a very beautiful idea that we need in the industry. So yeah.
It's again the question to bring it back to the term as a good wrapping up. If the opportunity presents itself, I'm always open to it.
I know you just have to work. It's in your blood.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please, we'll be
Thank you
with you
very much.
shortly. Okay, so everybody watching me, thank you so much for staying with us. I think you have really been impacted today. We didn't do too much of the news that you know. Yes, this is not a platform to hear about what you already know. This is a platform for you to hear the other side and to actually have more information when it comes to their journey, their expertise, and their successes. So thank you for staying with us. I want to thank everybody in the team. Aviation Business Series has been here for since May, and we're still on and on and on. So thank you for staying with us. Please, if you find us on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you find us on Facebook, follow and like, leave a comment. Let's get interactive, and I'll see you next week. All right. Bye. Bye.